Welcome to Ground Up Growth, where we share entrepreneurial insights, business strategies, and personal growth lessons to help listeners build success from the ground up.
Welcome back to Ground Up Growth. Today we have Patton Ford here with Ford Plumbing. I want to take a minute and tell everybody thank you again for all the positive feedback that we've had so far. It's been really good. And if I could take a second and just ask people to like and subscribe and review and rate or whatever it is on whatever platform that you are listening to, we would really appreciate it. That'll help us out a lot. So we're going to jump right in. Patton, he owns Ford Plumbing here in Madison County. He's got an incredible story, and I'm going to let him get us going.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Paul. It's an honor to be on here. I've watched.
It's not an honor.
It is. I mean, I've watched the first and mainly listened to the first three podcasts, and man, it's encouraging to see what kind of studs live in Madison County, man. You got Michael Deere at Watkins Roofing and Construction, and Tyler Moore, and their story, and then Austin LaSource. I'm excited to hear the next one's coming out because there's some just real strong people that live in Madison County, which is nice too because I'm second generation Madison County, like you, right? You grew up in Ridgeland too.
I did grow up in Ridgeland.
I grew up in Ridgeland. My mother my dad is an accountant by trade, and has served various roles in that industry. And then my mom was a real estate agent for Nick's Tan for a long time.
Really?
And so I grew up kind of probably like your kids, in the back of the truck, in the back of the car, listening to her talk on the phone. But we moved probably 6 times growing up, just all in Madison County. Lived in Dinsmore, like 3 different houses in Dinsmore. Moved into the Van Mark Apartments on Old Canton Road a couple of times, and then back in the mid '90s, we lived in Deer Haven. Built a house out in Deer Haven.
Yeah.
That was back when it was really the boondocks.
Those 2 fish on the wall came from Deer Haven.
There's some good. Has always been good fishing out there. And then they only lived there for a year because it was just so remote at that point.
So you're how old?
Deer Haven. So I'm 34, and I was 4 or 5 years old. Yeah.
All right. So you're 34. You got how many kids?
Have 4 children. 3 pregnancies. Got 2 for 1 out of one of the deals. Not 2 for the price of 1, just 2 for 1 pregnancy. But so got my oldest is 7, twins that are 5, and then a 3-year-old. Yeah.
So, all right, we got to unpack all this. So, where do y'all live now?
We live in the city of Madison.
Madison.
A Mark Jordan development, because it feels like home. Dinsmore was a Mark Jordan development, but we live in the reserve, right inside the city limits of Madison. Mm-hmm.
All right. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to St. Andrew's Episcopal School from pre-kindergarten all the way through senior year, then graduated.
So this is an incredible story. I actually watched the video on your website last night, and to go to St. Andrews and come out a plumber is
not a parent's dream. Huh?
It's not a
yeah.
But man, that was such an incredible story, and I want you to highlight that, especially with your mom and her account of just her wading through that. And man, that's just I want to hear more on that.
So when I graduated from St. Andrews in 2009, and went to Ole Miss, went to the University of Mississippi. And I majored in English and got a minor in business, and that was just the what I was kind of going to do. I was going to go to law school after college. I took a year off. I had a great job at a liquor store, as a matter of fact. So I stayed in Oxford, but I took a year off between my bachelor's degree and what I thought was going to be starting law school. And during that year, I went on a mission trip for a few months down to Haiti, country of Haiti, and while I was there, it's funny. I emailed my dad. I knew I was like not loving the idea of going to law school, so I was kind of straddling the fence anyway.
Did you work in high school? Did you have any other job before?
Oh, dude, yeah,
before the liquor store.
When I was 12, my parents told me you're paying for your own car and you're gonna get a job, and so
wow,
I got a job. My first job was at Liberty Park keeping the scoreboards.
Yeah.
And they actually put me in charge of like finding people to fill those roles. Which looking back, I was like, I can't believe they put a 12. I had an Excel spreadsheet out, calling high school girls, being like, "Hey, can you keep score?" You know, the girls who had already kept. It wasn't like I just started calling random high school girls. They were already on the list of girls who were, willing to do it. But that was when I was 12. Man, they would drop me off, at the baseball fields in the afternoon and come pick me up, and then shortly after that, I realized there wasn't enough money in keeping score.
Right.
So I started cutting grass, and that was, getting into the workforce early on was one of the best things for my work ethic and professional career. Right. I would say, hands down.
Yeah.
So
you cut grass, and what'd you do?
Cut grass, and then I did a couple of things, just kind of odd job type things. But
you're kind of limited when you're 13.
Yeah. When they had to drop you off somewhere, but luckily my first car ended up being a 4Runner, which you can roll the back window down in those 4Runners, and I'd slide that lawnmower and weed eater, and it's sticking out the back of that 4Runner.
Yes, sir.
And that's how I did it, man. And I did.
So you bought your first car?
Yeah. Now I will say this: after a few years, they were like, it's going to take them a long time to be able to afford
the
it.
trajectory.
So they started matching what I made,
okay,
which was a good incentive for me to make more, because I was like, well, now I'm actually starting to kick some of this back.
So you were financially disciplined at an early age.
Yes, against my will, but yes, I didn't want to do all that. But I'm so glad I did. I mean, looking back, after a few years of it, I realized I was. Probably to my advantage.
Oh yeah, it's a tougher road to hoe in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I have a very similar story, and it's.
When did you start working, Paul?
Dude, I'm actually going to give my story in a couple of episodes, and it gets pretty deep. My dad had graph paper when I was. I know it may have been earlier than 9, but I know when I was 9, he kept a ledger like a bank, and I had to borrow money from him to buy my shoes. I'm not kidding,
man.
But
yeah.
I mean, to your point, in the moment, it's like, man, this is so unfair.
Yeah,
this is not right. Everybody else is riding new go-karts and doing all what they want to do, and here I am hacking at it at 9 years old or 12 years old. But looking back, I mean, it's instilled in me a financial discipline that, some good and bad in it. I mean, I'm pretty cheap now, and that's a result of it, But in the same breath, it's been extremely rewarding.
For one of the best skills in that phase that I learned was learning how to pick up the phone and call somebody. My parents were like, before you show up to their house tomorrow to cut their grass, you're going to call them the night before, make sure it's okay with them, and as a 12-year-old, I was like, I didn't think twice about it. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And so as far as the first 6 years of the plumbing business, being able to schedule things, that, and then scheduling the scoreboard stuff, those kind of skills really help with that, or just having those already, not for the first time picking up the phone at 24, and calling somebody to be sure that everything's okay. It's not too wet today, is it? You know what I mean?
Right. So you had to work going up through school, and then you went to St. Andrews, you went to Ole Miss, and then, all right, so you're in Haiti, and you're starting to get the bug of, hey, I don't want to go to the cubicle.
That's correct. That's correct. And not only that, but I had already taken the LSAT, and I probably would have been admitted to school, but I was not going to. It was going to be a hard road ahead from there, like to not only just admissions, but like 3 years of the school, probably not going to have a pick of the litter as far as jobs go. And so I was like, I just don't know.
So did you take the LSAT?
I did take it. I don't even remember what I got, Paul. It was okay.
And the LSAT's a requirement for the.
It's kind of the entry exam, pretty much for law school.
Because I like
it's like ACT kind of where you send them off to all the schools and they evaluate your score, and Some schools will take you as low as, the
I went
bottom.
to take the GMAT. Isn't that GMAT a thing? Like after I got my bachelor's degree, and then I was thinking about getting a master's.
MBA
and
or something like that.
I remember buying that GMAT study book.
Yeah.
And I got it.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
what am I doing?
No, this ain't happening.
Another book. I just thought I
bought this book,
and
and then I tried to resell the book, as like mint condition because I didn't fool with it.
Did you do eBay sale, or did you go to Amazon used books?
I don't, man. eBay was probably fading out by then. I probably just tried to hustle it on the street, but
the GMAT book on the street, huh?
So, all right.
So I was in Haiti. I was like exactly like you said. I was kind of getting the bug to not, continue in that direction. And I remember in Haiti, they dig holes in the ground, throw their trash in it, and burn it. And that, for some reason, that really stuck with me more than all the other stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things to notice in Haiti, but that was the one that stuck with me the most. And I remember emailing my dad and being like, I don't know why, but something with the waste industry really seems like a path I might want to go down. And that was in October of 2014. And the end of October of 2014, Mike and Jan Kinney, who own Quality Plumbing in Jackson, just a husband and wife, they run that business, just the two of them. Now it's them and their son, John Michael. They were down there doing some plumbing work for one of the facilities that they were building. And I was like, hey, can I ride with y'all today? Not putting anything together other than just like, this seems like an interesting thing. They were going to go to a facility that I had not yet been to also, so I wanted to see that. And man, one thing led to another. Just got to talking to them. No real intentions or assumptions that anything was going to come out of it. But the more they talked about the need for people to get into the trades, and it sounded like kind of the opposite of what I was seeing, and for guys getting into the legal stream and going down that path, that became increasingly attractive to me. And so, funny enough, instead of coming back and going to law school, I came back and I was like, Mom, I think I'm going to go to plumbing school at night and go work for these people during the day if they'll have me. And
how did that
go? She makes it sound like she really was kicking and screaming. She really wasn't, at least to me. I think they definitely had a lot of especially her. My dad's always been pretty even, level-headed and even-keeled, but I think she probably really was like, what did we just do? Like, sacrificing so much, putting this kid through St. Andrews and getting him to this point, and now he's seemingly going to take a path downward,
Right.
And I think that they've definitely, as the years have gone by, changed their tune on that. But that was their initial, I think, kind of reaction behind closed doors.
And watching that video, man, that was.
She won't hide from.
I commend your mom, man. That's amazing. That the way she kind of owned up to, like, hey, this is how I felt about it.
Yeah,
and this is what I learned from it. And like I commend her because that's vulnerable on her part to admit, where she talked about the pride part of it. And I just think that's, to be able to, accept that is big. And so, kind of parallel, I kind of had some things like that with when I started my real estate company. I mean, it's parallel in that my family was not like, this is the greatest idea I've ever heard. Yeah. Now, they weren't like, ashamed of me being a realtor or anything like that, but it was not, man, that's a great idea. You ought to go do that. It was like, hey, I don't know if this is a smart move, so.
Yeah.
And that's whenever I just think you got to do some soul searching, and if that's where your gut's leading you to go, I think you need to lean in. I remember praying fervently about it. Like, if I remember telling God, like, if this is your will, if it's not your will, actually I prayed more so, close a door. If this ain't what you want me to do, close a door.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm moving forward.
Otherwise, you just kept walking through them. Yeah. I remember when this was after I talked to them about this. Shortly after I got back from Haiti, and I had to go return something to First Baptist Brandon, which I never go down I-20, and it was something that I had from Haiti that I was taking. I can't remember what it even was, but I had to go down I-20 towards, Brandon, and passing Hines Community College's main, I guess no, it's their Pearl campus, and they've got this sign, out by that lake with this. They got a fountain in the middle of it, and the sign literally said "Sign up for plumbing classes today." And I was like, "This seems like that might have been a sign, that I've been praying for,
Literally
and because I never would have gone down that road other than needing to return that. Now I go out to that direction all the time, but."
So, all right. So you told your mom or your parents that's what you're going to do, and so you started Ford Plumbing when?
A couple years after that. I worked for the Kennys for about 2 years, and then for a few months I went and did some new construction plumbing. Worked for a new construction outfit. I always knew that I didn't want to do that.
Right.
I wanted to do the service work, but I thought that it would be a good idea to just get some exposure to everything, the way it's all roughed in, and what you kind of have the X-ray vision for what's underneath your concrete slab, because that's an important part of service plumbing, especially in central Mississippi, is what's going on underneath the house.
And knowing where to cut the sheetrock.
You can cut it. You can guess in a lot of places,
Right.
But they make a lot of good toys these days that can help you, make sure you're not overcutting. Yeah. So
I actually worked for the city of Ridgeland Water and Sewer Department.
did you really?
I did.
Was
during the summers.
Was McManus, Mark McManus
Doug
there?
May.
I don't remember. Okay, some good people over there at the city of
sure.
Ridgeland, man. No question. They
Yeah, I don't know all their Christian names, but the guys I worked with on my crew, one's name was Jaws, and one guy's name was Dino, and that's about
I bet some
all
more
I
of
know.
them are still over there. I bet they are. How long ago was that though?
Man, that was like 15,
Yeah.
16.
You fixing leaks or cutting in new taps, or what were you?
We were putting in new taps on main water lines,
Yeah.
and then we were fixing. I remember one guy hit a main 12-inch line with a track hose tooth.
I bet a little bit of
Stuff
water
like
came
that.
out. Yeah.
You know?
How quick did it fill up the hole?
Oh, it was a mess. It was over there off of North Wheatley. It was.
Oh yeah.
It was.
Now you're getting into my stomping grounds. So.
Oh yeah, Squirrel Hill or whatever that is. What's that over there?
It's South Wheatley. South Wheatley.
South Wheatley.
Yeah, near North Park. Yeah. I'm on North Wheatley now in
all right,
Old
so
Town.
so you started. What year did you start?
2017.
17.
We've been
all right.
8 years. So yeah, 17.
How many people do you have working for? Wait, I saw your brother works with you.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you had a brother.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Man, he's
How old is he?
He's 95. He'll be 30 in May.
Okay.
He's 29.
So he works with you.
He works with me. He's been with me about 5 years. So the business is about 8 years.
So mama got a dose twice of. I'm gonna be a plumber.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yes. Yeah.
Was she ready for the second one?
At that point, she's probably just like, as long as y'all are alive, I guess I'm good with this. But so it started in 2017, and it was just me really for the first 3 years. I love listening to Michael. Was it Michael Deere, right? Mm-hmm. Talking about him tearing those cedar shake shingles off the front of that building and putting up the lath strips and putting the metal on, and Tyler making those shake, and then Austin making those stickers, just hearing
grinding.
the story of just like
Getting involved.
getting in on the front end, getting your hands dirty. I feel like that adds a lot of value to the business when the owner is like, he knows what, if it all came down to just him, he could get back in it and continue.
Right, and that's like, you see that, I think, I mean, I've always heard, I don't know for sure, but like Chick-fil-A and stuff, they make you work every position.
Yeah.
That way you understand, I would assume the employees respect, and then, and whenever you make it to the level of management or whatever your end goal is, that you're not above it to jump right back in.
That's exactly
and
right.
just, not do 8 hours a day doing.
Not only not above it, but some days you're longing for it. You know what
Right.
I mean? Yeah. I'm sure there's some days that you wish you could just
there's
go off
days,
a contract or whatever. I'm sure you do that still. But
there's days I'll go rent a track hoe just to go tear something down.
Yeah.
So,
I need to push a tree over.
right. So, all right. How many employees do you have?
So my wife Elizabeth just began working for us last week. With
Really?
us, excuse me, not for us. With it, yeah, it's a.
Yeah, those are two different words.
Those are two different words, and believe me, I'm going to be doing some learning from her. She is. So to answer your immediate question, I think she was the 17th 16th or 17th total, and that includes me and her and myself. And so, but she is a CPA by trade. It sounded a lot like Michael Deere's wife, who had been in public accounting. Very sharp women we're talking about that know their way around processes and operations, and so she's going to be an asset, 100%. Needed somebody like her to kind of get some of these what do they call these initials, these KPIs and SOPs and things like that I don't know what you're talking about, but I know they're important. And so
y'all's office is by Michael Deere's, isn't it?
That's exactly right. So
in Ridgeland.
This is a cool story too. The first house I bought out of college after I'd been working for a few years was in Old Town on Maple Street. Old Town, Ridgeland. It was I think it's the oldest house in Old Town. It's a block house built by a man who really I cannot remember his name. I'm ashamed of myself. Was my next door neighbor, Miss Joy Ellis's dad. I think his last name might have been Sturdivant. I cannot remember, but anyway, he built that house on Maple Street. And I lived there for a few years, even after we got married and had our first kid in that house. And I used to run around, for exercise back when I exercised in the neighborhood. And there was this old pink, like Pepto-Bismol colored, decrepit building. And I was like, man, that'd be a nice spot if I could I might could afford something like that, A few years went by, and I had done some work for a guy named Steve Kaminer, who owned a lot of rental houses, not a lot, but owned some rental houses in the city of Madison. And I went to go pick up a check from him at his office, which was on Stevens Street. So that runs adjacent to, perpendicular to North Wheatley and Maple Street, as a matter of fact. And I pulled up in his shop, and I was like, this pink building was right next to it. And I was like, who owns that building right there? And he said, I actually own it. Do you want to buy it from me?
You're talking to him.
And I was like, yeah, I would love it. I mean, and he probably was just, it was so old and in bad shape.
How old were you at that point?
31. I think I was 30 or 31. I think I was in 2020.
And you already had a house?
I had a house, everything? Yes. And so that was in 2020. And we still actually own that house on Maple Street and rent it to my mom and dad right now. They're building a house, so I'm their landlords now.
Oh, man. Did you check their credit score? And do a background check?
I did the credit score, but not the background check. No. I
need a security deposit, Mama.
I did get a security deposit. Yeah. The first few months, she would just text me about every little thing that was wrong with the house. You need to get over here and fix this. I was
Call your plumber.
Don't make me evict you, lady. But no. But anyway, that's a great house that we still have and rent, and it's been a great investment for us. But
that's not the Pepto-Bismol.
It's not the Pepto-Bismol house.
So Pepto-Bismol ended up being
up being our first shop that we bought, and we bought it. We put more into it than we bought it for, just to restore it. And ran out of parking space pretty quick. It didn't have a parking lot really at all. We added some parking, like a parking lot, and then I had to go back to Steve and be like, dude, can we park in your parking lot, because we don't have enough room for employees to park. And then I think the wheels began to turn. Then I think he was ready to sell that building too, the bigger building that we're in now. And so a year went by, and I was like, let's talk. And so we ended up getting that building from him too. So
let me ask you this: their houses, was it zoned to do what you want to do, or did you have to?
Very good question.
Walk us through that.
So it's technically, there is a little block that I think was just kind of because the buildings are so old, grandfathered into that area. They're C2 zoning. They just kind of drew a little square around these buildings. And I think where Michael is, which is just right across the street and I guess a little south, not far at all. I mean, I'm talking about a couple hundred yards south, is zoned industrial, I think, because I think that's how they were able to build that, building he's in. So now I do have to have special insurance. So if anything happens to those buildings, I can build to C2 specifications. But they are more of an industrial type building.
Yeah. Usually the way that I've experienced those things working is, if it's a residential house and it gets rezoned to
those aren't houses though. Those are commercial buildings.
Oh, okay.
They were built as.
I thought you were saying it was a house.
In fact, Gail Pittman, who is you know who Gail Pittman is? She makes I've actually done some work for her since. She makes like, I'm gonna butcher this. She used to make
Is it like the McCarty type stuff?
Yes. Have you ever? You've probably gone into some local houses and seen like some Gail Pittman backsplash and stuff. Right. This was real popular back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I remember.
My mother-in-law, who lives in Memphis, I think has some of her plates. She was in that building, and she got 3-phase electrical coming into this building because she had all these kilns and whatnot that she had in the back of that Pepto-Bismol color building, and so. Anyway, we ended up painting it white. When I had to go get some things approved by the city, and I knew they were working with me, a lot because those buildings were just real quiet, until I came along. And so they were like, you can keep it pink, but we would really like it if you chose a white color, really should kind of up the game over here.
What shade of white do you want?
And I was like, you give me, and they gave me like 3 options. Like, these are the whites we like a lot.
And I like them too, actually.
Yeah, they all look great to me. Which one do you like the best? So no, we did some improvements on that. But anyway, on both those buildings, we did a pretty significant amount of improvements on both those buildings when we bought them. And so now it's home, and we operate out of there. Great location, man. I mean,
I was about to say, jumping on 55.
Yeah.
Almost
between
was about to say
Jackson,
jumping on the trace, but you can't do that.
You can't.
Commercial vehicle.
Not technically, can't go too far at least. But 55 and 51 are just, with equidistant from where we are almost,
right.
And so it's a great spot if you're sending trucks out all over the metro area to have a central location like that.
So, all right, there's a couple of things I really want to unpack here. One being, your employees are a younger age from what I gathered. That's one thing I want to hit on. And then just the trade in general, and kind of going back to, it's almost unorthodox to go get schooling and then come out and pop out as a plumber. And we talked about this on one of the previous episodes about how college can be a chute. And you can be expected to jump in these different chutes and pop out a doctor, lawyer, accountant, whatever. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But to your point, not everybody wants to be in an office.
That's correct.
And the trade industry it needs to be propped up in a different way, because to your point, as generations go by, we're getting further and further away from those trades, but you're always going to need it. You're always going to need a welder. You're always going to need an electrician. You're always going to need a plumber. And the further we get away from that, the more valuable it is if you are one of those people. And it needs to be highlighted and not looked down on as, potentially, as, they missed a step and they became a plumber.
It's like you must have had to do this.
Because the truth of the matter, and it's not all about money at all.
Oh, that's
but
right.
It is a component of it. And you can make way more money as a plumber, I've got friends in the landscape business that make far more money than doctors and lawyers. And I'm not saying it, I'm not downplaying the doctor. I'm just saying the sky is the limit on that stuff, because when you're not a W-2 employee, and let me say this, and then I'm gonna let you jump in. I just get fired up about this stuff because the other thing is, a lot of those trade industries, they just don't market really hard, and they don't, like, the business model and strategy. I feel like you can go in and disrupt any one of those industries. And if you just spend the time, money, effort, energy, and create a strong business model and simply do what you say you're going to do.
That's right. Yeah.
You can make as much money as you want. It's not about the money, but
we say it sometimes, this ain't the Red Cross either. We're not just doing out here. This isn't just only charity work. So I do have a soft spot in my heart for both people who are getting the trades and the doctors and lawyers too, because, I think that we are beginning to wake up as a society to the fact that we need that you can make a pretty good dent by getting into the trades. And so I think we're beginning to slowly see that. We do have a lot of young guys that work for us. I think anywhere from 19, 22. Crockett is considered one of the more elder people there, and he's not even 30 yet. You know what I mean? Wow. So we've got a lot in the 20 to 25 range. I'm talking about maybe 8 or 9 or 10. And so that's, I think originally, and it may still happen, I just don't know about it as much. There was some, like, people would get almost a little like, what is this kid doing in my house? You know, he's so young. And,
right.
You know, you want to just be like, well, ma'am, what do you propose? Because there's really not anybody else out there. You know,
you're not getting in there.
Yeah, well, and I
not you. I'm saying the homeowner.
She's not going to. And who are you going to find? Because there's really not a lot of people out there who are. You know, there was a whole generation, I think, that really just got skipped over. That got into the trade. And but I do think this next, what are we in right now? What are the 18 to 25-year-olds called now? Like the
young bucks.
Yeah, the young bucks. Yeah, I think that they're kind of waking up to it and beginning and being more
seeing the
open
opportunity.
Yeah, and maybe I just think that because I have so many of them that I get to work with on a daily basis. Yeah. But an entire generation really did effectively get skipped over. I remember when I first started plumbing school, them saying, the average age of a licensed plumber in the city of Jackson was like 56. So that's pretty old, and that was 10 years ago. And so you do the math. I mean, that's a pretty large gap of people who were able to do the work. So when you don't have a 35, 45-year-old show up to your door to do your plumbing and they're younger, that's why. Right. That's because it's really this. We're teaching them the trade when they come work for us. You know what I mean? And at 19, 20, 21 years old.
I could only imagine. Tell me real quick about just how hard it is to sift through and find good. I mean, because you hear everybody in the trade industry say it is. Yeah, man, it's so you cannot find good labor, people that want to show up for work. So I mean, compound that with a young kid that's still maturing. What does that process look like, and how hard is it to fill that roster?
That's a great question, because that's a reality. The Lord has been so good to me. Probably the biggest blessing of our company is that we have just like 16 out of 16 employees, just great, solid young kids, and not much. I mean, there have been a couple that I've interviewed and decided to go a different direction on, but I mean, I want to continue to be like a magnet for good young kids to want to come train up under us and know that the sky's the limit for their career. They can stay with us, and we're going to continue to grow and hopefully have a spot for them. But that, by the grace of God alone, has been a battle we have not had to fight too much. We all enjoy working with each other. I'm probably the moodiest one at the company, to be quite honest with you. You can ask any of them. There's every now and again I'll get up onto somebody, you know what I mean? But that doesn't happen a lot, I don't think. But
that's got to confirm the whole gut feeling and going into the business. Like that's got to be confirmation.
There've been so many times where I'm like, woo. When we got pregnant with the twins, I was like, I don't know about this being a business owner thing. I might need to go find a job somewhere. And there was a couple of men that I talked to in that season that really just said exactly what I needed to hear. They were, really, I think the Holy Spirit was just talking through them, saying, you need to stay on the track that you're on. And so I appreciate their wisdom, because they could have easily been like, yeah, come work with us. It made it easy on me. And they were like, no, you need to keep doing what you're doing. But, that's, I don't know.
What's your most memorable plumbing experience?
My most memorable, the one that I think about when I think about the days where I was doing it every day was there's a building at the corner of, I think it's North Street and Fortification, kind of Belhaven Heights area. It's a commercial building, and it was I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, and they had been called because they had I'm talking about a massive water leak under their building. I think we were talking about this job not too long ago, Paul, but it was a piece of 1.5 inch copper, and this was back when I had really mainly only soldered 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch copper. And Mr. Mike, I was still working for Mike. He was like, "You gonna fix this leak?" And I was like, but it's 5:30 and it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. It was cold underneath this building. And
this is when you were working for him?
This is when I was working for him.
Okay.
And I'm sure if I sat down and thought about it some more, I could come up with some more memorable. I know I could, but this is the one that just sticks out to me because he was there with me. He was sitting right there with me. It wasn't like he was just forcing me to go up underneath there and do it all for him. He was right there by me, watching me, and knew this was a learning experience.
Right.
He knew the I was frustrated. The job wasn't going like I wanted to, and I tried soldering it 2 or 3 times, which it kind of stinks because when you don't get the solder right, you got to sit there and drain the whole building down, which takes a long time. So
Right.
it's not just an easy quick fix to redo it. So I missed the solder, which is basically like welding the pipe together a couple of times, and on the 3rd time, I just remember being so happy. It's just the weight. It's like a weight lifted off your shoulder, and that was just being that transition from just being so flustered and frustrated, just being so relieved. That the kind of, I guess, etches this part into your brain, and that's probably what I go to. That as a memory. I don't know if Mike even remembers that, to be perfectly honest with you, but that was a good one.
I'm sure he does. He's probably like, yep, he's going to remember this one. He's going to talk about this on a podcast.
Yeah. So, what about you? What's the most memorable when you were learning before you kind of became the Hopper Properties guy? When you were learning the real estate trade, what was your most memorable experience that you think back on? Maybe formative experience.
Ooh, in real estate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or not. But if there's one in real estate,
Man, I don't know. I'd have to think on that. You got me off guard. Caught me off guard there. I can't really think of anything in particular, but I had. I do remember whenever I was just about to get into it, I had a friend that was in the business, and he just warned me. He said, "Man, don't let anybody run over you." And like I took that, and that probably wasn't what I needed to hear, because when I got in, I was like Dukes up.
Yeah.
And that's not the way
you
to
were like
be.
the bull in the
I mean, like
the
looking
arena.
back, I'm just like cringe worthy on it. But the poor it was I think she was at Nick's Tan. That was my first deal, and I was just like, "You're not gonna run over me."
Yeah, you said it. You're like, you trying to run over me, aren't you? You're not going to. Yeah. Right. She's like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
I've got a lot of little things like that I've tried to learn from over the years, because that's just obviously not the way to be. But
I have some cringeworthy moments too that I'd rather not talk about, but they exist. I mean, they do, and
that's part of it.
One of the things that I try to make sure that I communicate to the people I work with is like, you're gonna make some mistakes.
Right.
Like it's not an if, it's a when. And hopefully they're not big, but when you do, like own it quick. Like own it. Don't try to defer blame. The quicker you can man up to it and say, this is on me, whether it was really on you or not. There's there's gray areas a lot of times, but just own it. That's going to be the best way out of that situation.
That's right.
And you're going to mess up owning it sometimes too. But the minute you try to start dishing it away or putting it off on somebody else, you're making a second mistake, and this is a compound from there.
Sure, that's right.
Yeah.
And to piggyback that as well, always, if you don't know the answer to something, it is totally okay.
Yeah.
And lean into it. Like, look, I don't know. I don't know how to do this, but I'm willing to learn. And whenever you do that, people are going to bend over backwards, I feel like, to do that. I tell our agents that all the time. I'm like, which we don't really have a whole lot of room for, making those mistakes, because then we get sued. So I'm like trying to prevent that from ever happening.
You don't want them to be too comfortable with making a mistake. Yeah,
right. But to combat that, I've tried to tell them, I'm like, look, if you don't know the answer to something, just if you tell a client, like, look, I don't know, but I will find out. Yeah. They're not going to not use you or discount anything. They're going to respect that you don't know and that you didn't, fluff it or tell them a lie or a white lie or whatever. Yeah. They're going to respect that, and then come to me and we can figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
We can get the answer, but don't just, there's an element of fake it till you make it, but it's not applicable in a lot of things in our industry. So
I've heard, I think on a podcast one time, that was good advice that you need, not knowing's okay. In fact, you need to put yourself into some situations where, not in a professional sense all the time, but like outside of work, do some things that kind of force your brain to, stretch out a little bit, and then you're going to go to your work and be like, that's a relief. I don't have to do that stuff anymore. I'll use this as an example. A couple of years ago, I decided, this is when our youngest this is the day she was born, we started building a house, and I was the general contractor on it, and that stretched me pretty hardcore. I enjoyed it, but I went back to my job. It was like, this is almost easy now. Not easy, but it was almost like, and obviously there's some parallels between plumbing and building a house, because there's plumbing in a house, but doing something that I had to learn and not know, and kind of rest in that not knowing, and being okay with it and embracing it in a sense, and then going back to work and being like, okay, this is almost easier now that I've been, whooping my glutton for punishment. And another one I'm doing now is our kids are learning how to play chess. And so I'm trying to learn how to play chess well. And my 7-year-old keeps whooping me like a drum. And I'm like, glutton for punishment again. But that, learning some things can be good for your career development.
So the plumbing industry, it can have an emergency service component of that. So a water heater bust in the middle of the night, whatever. Was there early on, were you involved in those late night calls, and how did that affect, if so, how did that affect the personal work-life balance?
That's a great question. I would wish I could come up with 3 or 4 stories of that, me having to wake up in the middle. And there were some. I mean, that would be Saturday evening, and even now, this is our first year that I've kind of reserved somebody to be on call. We don't really mark it as doing after hours stuff, but there were definitely some. The work-life balance thing, I guess I've always been okay at. More than anything is that phone when you get back home that distracts me, and not necessarily having to leave to go do a lot of, on-site repairs, but we're responding to emails or texts, or being sure that the customer's happy with whatever it might be, or, same thing that you deal with, I'm sure. But it's a thing, and I'm trying to get better at it. Leaving work, I don't like leaving work early to go to kids' things, which is as a father, a terrible thing to say. That I feel like, well, now it's the opposite of work-life balance. Like I'm taken away from focusing on my job to go something that's scheduled at 3:30. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. I sense that's probably some unhealthy response in me, that I don't want to have to go to this, but it's your children, and they're only this age once, and I have to remind myself that this is part of being a dad. So I'm just thinking of random stuff.
I didn't prepare for all this stuff. It's like pulling stuff out, because I used to be in the water damage and mold remediation business, so I worked behind plumbers a lot. And I just saw a lot of the after hour stuff, because the plumber would go in and fix it, and then they'd say, call Paul. And we'd go in and dry it out, whatever. I just remember them always telling me that Thanksgiving was like the busiest day.
Oh, it is. And in the days after Thanksgiving, man, because I think a lot of people are becoming wise to like, I better not call a plumber after hours now. It's really expensive. And so like it is busy. And then like the Friday and Monday after are just
too many people
it fries your brain, man. Yeah. And then just washing crazy things down the sink. You know what I mean? And that's what it really is, the kitchen sink stuff that they're putting down the sink and turning
chicken bones.
Disposal's got this,
Right.
Yeah, no, it does. It says bone crusher on the side of that disposal. It is not.
Man, I'm going to make sure Gina listens to this, because, we're out here on a treatment plant system. And I'm like, quit putting, you can't just put fish scales or something down the disposal, and she's like,
she can, Paul. She can. Tell her to keep it up.
Taking food off your plate.
Yeah. I'm kidding. No, you're right.
She's like, it's a disposal. It disposes everything. I'm like, no, it's not. That's not how it works.
It's hard. You can't get every bit of grease off your plate, but you can. There's certain things I see. I'm like, how did feathers? You turn that disposal on, and feathers are coming out of it. I'm like,
what's going through your mind here?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this will work. Let's try it out. And not really thinking about the next steps, but a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. So when did you start, Paul? When did you start Hopper Properties?
Hopper Properties, I started in 2014. I got in real estate, got my license in 2011.
Mm-hmm. So when was your first kind of like lot neighborhood development kind of stuff? When did that start happening?
That I personally was involved in developing?
Or just that you were in on, like you were selling lots in a development or whatever it might be. When do you like that?
So I enjoy that a lot. I love land. You know, we do a lot of houses and land, and we do some commercial as well. But you know, my heart is in homes on land. And as far as me being involved, the very first, I bought a lot in the Sanctuary development in Canton before I got into real estate in 2010. I think it was. I paid $74,000 for a lot in there, and I went in and made some money back in. It was a big deal. I went and got a loan with Bank Plus. I'll never forget, and this is not a knock to Bank Plus or the loan officer, but I had no understanding of loans and stuff like that. This is pre-real estate. And I remember going in there, I had saved up $25,000. It was a $74,000 lot, and I was putting 25 down and borrowing, 49. And I remember going in there, and I never even asked him what the interest rate was.
Yeah.
And he had told me that it was 5.5. And when I went in there to sign papers, I remember, I'll never forget, I'm signing the papers, and it says 6.5. And I was like, I thought this was 5.5. And he said, "Oh, I meant to tell you it was actually 6.5." And I said, "Okay."
So it's not.
And I signed up for it, and I just had no idea what I was doing, and that began a huge learning experience. Which I had extreme financial discipline when I was young, and I'll get into that on my story. But that was a big learning curve there, but I ended up doing some small developments to it. I built a pier on it, put a road into it, and churched it up, and then resold it. And when I resold it, now I made like $7 or $8 on the resale, which I did all the work. I built the pier, I put the road in, I rented the Traco, I did all this stuff, and I love doing that. And man, you'd have thought I hung the moon, making $7 or $8, but it created a bug in me. And that was before I ever got into real estate. And so I've always gravitated towards those type of things. I've morphed into, it takes money to make money. And so it's taken years to get in a position where, we can acquire land and go through the development process and not lean on banks so heavy and things like that. So, but I would say 2010 is when I jumped into it.
It's important to find a good banker, man. I can't wait to hear and watch the Adam Black one, because he's at first commercial now, right? That's where I do a lot of my banking. And Elisa Phillips is who I use, and she's been, I don't know where I'd be without her, quite honestly. She's been a guiding light and really helped me a lot. And so the importance of finding good lenders and who can explain it to a plumber, this is what you're dealing with, was really, really a good find. I was working at her house. I don't know if she knows this, but I was up in her attic. I didn't think she was home, and I got stung by a wasp, and I was like, "Dadgummit!" Started screaming up in her attic, and then I came down and she was in her kitchen. I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm Patton Ford. Good to meet you." And anyway, one thing led to another, and now she's who I call when I need something. You know what I mean? And so that was an interesting first. I don't know if she had gotten home already or not. Right. So she's learning about it now. She didn't hear me carrying on in her attic about getting stung. But anyway,
we're about out of time, but I would like to, what's the plan for Ford Plumbing? Any big plans to continue to grow? Anything? Are you
we're adding, we just got our licensing stuff finished up, and we're starting air conditioning work. So we're going to hop into that. This as of 2025 is going to be a big year. So we've got a guy who's been in the air conditioning business a long time, and a younger guy who's be the one we send up in the attic, when things get crazy in July, and I'll be there with them and doing whatever needs to be done.
So is that a rebrand opportunity?
Well, kind of interesting you say that. We're just going to change it. It's Ford Plumbing and Gas right now. So we're going to take that gas off and put air. So hopefully nothing seriously different, just Ford Plumbing and Air instead of Ford Plumbing and Gas. So that's going to be
plumbing and gas and HVAC be a little too much.
It's just too much. It's just a real casual swap of those 3 letters. So I'm hoping it won't be. I mean, it's going to be a headache every single time I got to change the name of the business on something. I'm sure. I'm probably going to be kicking myself for years to come. But
no, I think that sounds good, clean, easy. I mean, I like that. Plumbing and air.
Yeah. So it's talk about stretching your mind and doing something you don't know how to do. That's going to be something that'll
be a big
learning curve for me. And we've done some things at the company that I wouldn't be able to, tell you exactly how we do them. So I've had to kind of take my hands off and just trust some of the people that work for me, and I do wholeheartedly. But that's going to be another opportunity to do that. So
last thing I want to ask you on the way out, what advice? I think you'd be the perfect person to answer this. What advice would you give a young person in high school, and just that's thinking about going to college, or maybe they've got a fire in them that I've got a passion for a trade or something. Like, what advice would you give somebody young?
Just like we started off talking about, get a job. It doesn't even have to be a job in the trades. I mean, just go get it. Just that is I hate when I see so many kids that are in middle school and high school and they go to college and they've never had a job for more than just a couple of weeks in the summer or something like that. I mean, it is so important. And it doesn't even have to be in the trades. Just go work somewhere. Be around people. Learn how to go get something. Be on that bottom rung, man. Embrace it.
How to be on time. I mean, just elementary business stuff.
Exactly.
I agree 100%. I mean, I think that is huge and a must. I mean, if you're getting your first job out of college,
I feel bad for you.
You're behind
the 8 ball.
100%. And you're coming out after sowing all this time. Especially if you're doing 4 plus 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, I deserve this, and this. And it's like,
and the bottom rung looks like you'd never be on that, but that bottom rung is so important. It's the most important rung on the ladder is the bottom one.
That's so good.
That's what I would say is just go find somewhere to be the grunt man.
Find the bottom rung.
And then you go, don't try to skip any until, because some of those rungs get skipped sometimes.
Yeah.
That's not good for anybody, but.
Man, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Patton, I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely.
I'm
being out
excited for the future of Ford Plumbing and just looking forward to watching y'all continue to grow.
Same to you, man. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
All right.